Moved and seconded. Are there any amendments to the agenda requested? I will note that we do have an executive session, and you should have all received an email about it today. So all in favor of approving the agenda as drafted? Okay. Next is approval of the minutes of our April 14th select board meeting.
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any amendments to the draft meeting minutes?
Yeah, I have one. Just on line 20, it says Ross Conrad came late or was late to the meeting. I think he joined, it should be, he joined the meeting later. It wasn't that he was late in a sense. I mean, wouldn't that be?
Right, like we expected him at the beginning of the meeting. Okay. Anything else?
So what was the correction again?
Correction is to change it because Ross joined for a specific purpose. He joined the meeting later. He didn't join the meeting late.
Okay.
Right.
Good. Thank you.
Kathleen, can you resend me the email regarding I just looked in my spam folder. I didn't get that email today.
Okay.
I don't have any emails from you today. I even looked in my spam folder. So if you would resend that, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Would you use my Google address, my Gmail? Because it'll come to my phone faster, please. Do you have that one handy? I'll put it in the chat. I'll put it in the chat.
No, I have it right here.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second with a slight amendment. All in favor of approving the draft minutes with the one amendment, signify approval.
Aye.
Okay. Next, I see Amy Ryan's on. Is she on for citizen comments or?
Said that she was not.
She's not, okay. So with no citizen comments, next is another update to keep us all abreast of what's going on with the downtown bridge replacement project. Kathleen, Jim, and myself had a call today with Wayne and John, who you're all familiar with, and just trying to get an update as we all saw the governor's release of up to 5-man crews, which was kind of the magic number for us. And we thought, oh, great, we're going to get going now and everything. Well, there was a caveat that New York workers could not stay in Vermont if they weren't essential workers. And so we're caught in this little catch-22 where we have got the numbers approved, but we haven't got the domiciling approved because they cannot commute back and forth. They have to stay here for 14-day periods. So what we are hoping is to get the project finally declared critical infrastructure so that they would become essential workers and be able to stay and abide by the entire plan that was put forward previously, where they would have single rooms. They would stay here for 2 weeks and not commuting back and forth. And they would take most of their meals would be served en masse, and so of course there's no restaurants anyways, but they wouldn't be standing and going in and out of takeout places and whatnot. The meals would be shuttled to them. So we feel that we have an excellent plan. Chief Hanley's report gave us some good backup that we haven't had a new case in over a week. Across the lake, where these workers are coming from is very similar to the Addison County environment, and so we're hoping to hear something soon. I don't know, did I miss anything, Jim?
No, I think that's pretty much right on, Brian. The only thing I would add is that, for the first couple of weeks, we're only talking about 10 guys, to restart delivery of precast, to work on some infrastructure down between the bridges, and to finish up the steel sheeting up on the north end of the project. So we're not talking about a whole gangload of guys for this initial push to restart the project.
It is kind of frustrating, and I'd say more than kind of, it's very frustrating. Understand that we want to go very carefully and go slow, but we feel that we have made a pretty good, strong argument for the need, and the numbers are supporting relaxing sufficient so that we can get moving on this. So we're appealing the latest ruling to get an assignment of criticality to this project so that the workers can stay here and we can get moving on the project. Any questions? If there are none, I'll move on then to Chief Hanley, who's going to talk about the emergency management plan adoption. Chief.
Hello. Yeah, this is our annual adoption. It's got to be in by May 1st, so hopefully I can get it in tomorrow. There's really only 3 parts of this plan that really are critical for the select board, and when you adopt this, that puts these into action. The first one is a proclamation that's been signed periodically over the years, saying that in dealing with any emergency, we'll follow the National Incident Management System as a management tool, and we do that, and that's a big part of the plan. Next is the authority to act, which gives the town manager the authority to declare a state of emergency, or in their case, an emergency interim successor to declare that emergency. And once that the emergency is declared, it authorizes the manager to be able to make emergency capital purchases and expenditure of funds to deal with whatever emergency is there. The next part is the emergency interim successors. That's a list of people that would stand in for the town manager if she wasn't here or we couldn't contact her for whatever reason, illness or out of town, and actions and decisions had to be made. That goes 7 deep. It's listed in the plan as the town manager is number 1, the police chief, director of operations, the chair of the board of selectmen, the vice chair of board of selectmen, and the assistant town manager. So it goes through that interim successors, and this is really just to take over until the town manager could be back in charge in the event of emergency. So those interim successors would have the authority to declare a local emergency, which then activates state response. The last part of this that's of probably some interest to the board is a little bit later in the plan. It involves interagency relationships under the declaration of an emergency. So incident command, once an emergency is declared, has full access to all resources of the town. That means if they need to deploy some public works assets or police assets or some other assets or personnel assets to operate an emergency operations center, then they do that. They're able to do that. So it just gives some flexibility and some staffing support during a major emergency. The rest of the plan is pretty much just how we do things when things happen, and a list of resources and kind of an order of battle. But that's about it. The parts I mentioned are really the critical pieces.
Questions?
Okay.
Pleasure of the board.
I'll make a motion to readopt the 2019 Middlebury Emergency Management Plan for 2020 for submission to Vermont Emergency Management.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions on that? Okay, all in favor? Okay. Chief did note that probably later you'll be coming forward with some recommended changes, Chief?
We've got some operational things based on some exercises we did at the end of the year last year. None of them are critical. They don't affect these critical parts of the plan, just operational things like how do we set up the emergency operations center, that kind of thing.
Okay. You want to go into the COVID-19 response update, Chief?
Sure, I'll just run down a list of things I prepared for you. Right now, we've got no reported gaps in any town services due to absenteeism due to this CV-19. So things are all working pretty smooth, at least from our perspective. I haven't heard anything different. We've issued one written notice to a business which is out of compliance with the governor's orders. Just ask them to please come within compliance and ask them to call me or email me if they have any questions or if I can help them get along with this. If they remain kind of indignant and refuse to do anything, then the next step is I have to make a report to the Attorney General, but we hope to just avoid that. Just do the things you need to do and we'll move on. We've responded to a lot of requests for information concerning commercial activities under the governor's orders, so I respond to those as quickly as I can, usually within the hour if I'm there to get the message. We also assisted a resident returning to Vermont who had to leave to deal with a family medical issue out of state. He was looking for a place where he could quarantine himself, so we made arrangements with the Marriott and got some exceptions to get him there if he needed to be there for the in-state quarantine. He subsequently found a place in Weybridge, so we kind of smoothed the way for him. But those are the kind of things that we're doing as well. We continue our weekly briefings with the Attorney General, the State Emergency Operations Center, the Middlebury Information Sharing Ground, as many of you know, the Department of Public Safety, and our weekly EMD meeting with the folks in Porter and Middlebury College. Exchange of information, that kind of a thing, just to keep ourselves all going in the same direction. Later this week, we're meeting to finalize the distribution of masks that came from the college, and so far the requests far outnumber the masks available, so we'll be going through the numbers and see if we can get at least the medical people all the masks that they've requested and need, and then we'll divvy it up from there. These weekly briefings from the state are winding down. They've combined several of them now into one meeting. So we're seeing how things are kind of moving along, kind of on autopilot right now. So we're kind of with that moving out of the emergency phase to more of a recovery phase. Most of those things have been taken care of. The State Emergency Operations Center daily briefing papers are now down to 5 days rather than every day. The best briefings we get are those from the Vermont Information Center, who provides all the stuff that you get from the health department and the governor's office, along with a lot of intelligence briefing. And this is where you get stuff that we put out today on the issues with Zoom and some of the vulnerabilities, designed mostly for businesses to be aware of, just kind of an informal thing, informational thing. I put out these bulletins now. I've done 32 of them since the middle of March, and just kind of running out of information to pass along. Before we get repetitive and the things become overly boring, I think we'll scale those down to maybe a couple of times a week or on an interim basis as issues arise that we need to get information out. But there's a lot of links that we put out over the past month. People can get a lot of this information right from the health department links, the Department of Labor links, the different state agencies. They all have links to this, and they're really helpful. So we kind of keep it to the stuff that's relevant specifically to our immediate area here. And finally, we've got infection control policies are all in place in the police department. Infection control supplies are at last starting to come in because we were getting dangerously low. We burned through a lot of the disinfectant materials because the cars have to be cleaned before somebody gets in them, when somebody's out of them. If somebody's been in the car, they've got to be disinfected again. There's this whole rigmarole that we go through to keep these cars clean in addition to the building. We were burning through that. Unfortunately, we've gotten a lot of donations, and that is keeping us going. As far as other activity, I know we've got a Department of Corrections early releasee in one of our hotels, and we're monitoring that situation. We don't really know much about him, but we'll try to get some detail on that. We've got, like my last count, 47 or 48 211 residents living in our hotels. They're brought in from other areas of the state and they're placed in the hotels. Our concern is when this is over, what are we going to do with them? If they're going to be moved out or brought to shelters in their resident area. They're from all different parts of the state. And we've been seeing some activity increase, problems in the parks a little bit. Nothing overly contentious, but still kind of annoying issues to deal with. We're seeing an increase in untimely deaths for some odd reason. mostly medical issues. We're seeing an increase in domestic abuse and child abuse cases, and we've started to see a lot of shoplifting. And it's not for the stuff you would think people would need. Anyway, we're keeping our, trying to, as best we can, maintain high visibility patrols. This new schedule we went into last week to try to reduce the stress on the officers is working well. It actually gives us more people at any one time around the clock than we had under the old schedule, and gives them far longer rest periods. And it seems to, the morale has seemed to have picked up greatly in the past week. They're well rested, they're all healthy, and we're staying healthy, and things are looking good in that regard. And that is it.
Thank you, Chief.
Great.
Any questions?
Thank you, Chief.
Heather, did you have a question?
No.
No, okay. I had just sent a note to Chief and Kathleen. I think that the quality of what gets put out is extremely high, very professional. And it's nice to have such professional people working, leading the town. So, you know.
Well, I'll give all of the credit to the chief. I simply handle his fan mail, forwarding that to him.
Well, he's doing an exemplary job, and I'm grateful. The town is grateful.
Well, thank you for all that. When you get into the budget thing, we haven't had any extraordinary expenses regarding this. The big expenses we've had is the infection control materials, but that hasn't really been that bad. We're seeing our overtime drop with this new schedule, and so I think we're trying to stay within the budget as well as accomplish some of the other things we're trying to do with keeping the officers healthy.
Great. Kathleen, the correspondence from Agency of Commerce and Community Development?
And I'm just admitting Karen Duguay to our meeting here.
Overtime drop with this new schedule, and
So,
as well as
yes, the Agency of Commerce and Community and Development, just to give you a heads up, the board a heads up that they are looking at tapping the town's unused revolving loan funds to make some loans to businesses, loans and grants. This is just an early conceptual idea, so stay tuned for more information on that. You'll see in your packet that I added some correspondence from the regional development corporations, RDCs, expressing some concerns about the program as proposed. So again, stay tuned. I'll be back in touch with you if and when this is a program that gets any traction.
Any questions on that? Kathleen had sent out some extra stuff again on an email today.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to read it, but I can follow up with Kathleen if anything comes up when I've read it.
Okay, and I heard from Fred today, and he's hearing from the writers that were assigned segments of the Economic Health Committee final presentation to the select board, and as business people, they've all been very busy and trying to survive this economic downturn. And so, stay tuned. I've told them that we're patiently awaiting when they do finalize that. I do think it's important to capture what they've learned and discussed over the time in a written report, and to present that, have that come to the select board for consideration, but certainly understand these are different times. And I think we talked about that previously, but I think, it continues that a reasonable timeline is probably expected, given this is an all volunteer committee. Kathleen's, are you prepared on the finance and budget impacts, Kathleen?
We don't, I don't have anything further to add from the last meeting at this time.
And it was since that last meeting that we got the correspondence, and in your packet was the correspondence between Senator Hardy and Representative Scheid and Senator Bray that came back and forth. I didn't track that did they finalize that yet?
I believe that they did finalize extending the deadline for the payment of property taxes, reducing or waiving penalties, and adjusting the municipal tax rate for the calendar year 2020. I'll have to confirm where that is, but that's what Senator Bray said that his committee, his government operations committee, was working on.
Yeah, I knew some stuff was held up because the House hadn't voted to vote remotely, but I know that's passed now. They remotely voted to vote remotely, and so I'm hoping they've gotten that done so that if we feel we need to do something, we can.
I think at very least, we're going to have to do something about our property tax deadlines for 2020.
Yeah.
Pushing them back a little bit in the fall so that we have the information on the homestead filings that will be due in July, on July 15th, with the state property tax returns.
Okay. Next is a discussion, because we're doing so much remotely and the requirement has been that we all sign on the authorization. We have one member that on our duty roster, so to speak, reviews and recommends approval to the board, and the entire board approves. And then the entire board signs off on the authorization of expenditures. The select board can authorize the one member to sign for us once the board has approved that. And so Kathleen has suggested here that we adopt that so that it's easier for board members and they don't, and it covers us. We have an approval. I'm sure that you probably have ones that haven't been all signed off on at this point.
For the last meeting, I simply noted we had Farhad's signature, and I also noted the select board's vote and who was in attendance for that.
And that's the way we would go forward with that. Only under the approval of the select board. So what she's seeking is a formal approval of the select board to make that our mode of operation until such time as we're back to meeting in person. Questions?
So I'll move pursuant to select board expenditure review roster for the, oh, I'm on the wrong thing, aren't I?
No, you're
No,
good.
that's,
Yep, you're right.
that's not.
Oh, okay. For the period of March 10th, 2020 to February 21st, 2021, that the select board authorized the one board member responsible for reviewing and presenting orders for payroll and operating expenses at each meeting to approve and sign said orders on behalf of the entire board.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor? Okay.
It's hard to get out of the habit of saying aye.
When we all go back in person, we're gonna have to get. Kathleen, budget updates?
No budget updates to add.
Okay? So,
Just a quick question.
yes.
Anybody accept the, I asked this last time, anybody accept the furlough?
Yes, we had 9.5 FTEs accept the furlough.
I just wanted to say something to make sure you knew I could still talk.
Oh. Hello, Dan.
Dan Warner, contract amendment? Dan, can you turn your mic on?
Which you keep pressing mine, Kathleen. You don't want me.
Okay,
I'm like,
I'm sorry. There we go.
Okay, does that work?
Yeah.
Now you're authorized to speak, Dan.
All right, thanks. Good evening, everyone. So just one item of business tonight. It's a change order agreement with VIA, for the work for the police department control building project, reuse project. Technically, it's called a change order. More precisely, it probably should be a contract amendment. Basically, what this is from the initial agreement that we saw about a year ago. It was phases 6 and 7. At the time, we only approved, the board only approved through phase 5, and that was for $40,310. So to finish up through the contract for their services, they're asking to add those last 2 phases. They total $16,915. The other piece of enclosure was the original proposal, and there was an error on it that says phase 6 bidding and negotiation, that says phase 6 construction administration. That should really say phase 7 construction administration. So anyway, so what I'm asking you to approve tonight is their change order for $16,915.00.
Okay, I move to approve, and do we want to call it change order or call it contract amendment? Because that seems to be technically more what it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they titled it, and, I didn't ask them to change the wording, but it's...
Okay, well...
Amendment sounds better, it doesn't really matter.
I was going to say, I think we'd rather stay with the technical term. We could do parentheses change order. So I move to approve the contract amendment, parentheses change order number 1 to the contract with Vermont Integrated Architecture for the Police Department Adaptive Reuse and Energy Efficiency Project for a total of $16,915.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions on that change order or contract amendment? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Hey, Dan, before you leave us,
Yes.
how's it looking for some of the projects that we have had, and how do you see us spooling back up here with some of the stuff that we had on tap for this year?
Sure. So I'll just start with this one here. The bid opening is this Thursday at 2:00. Asher and Nick went and did a video walkthrough for the police department part and the control building and sand filter building. That was part of their information that they furnished to the bidders. They've issued a few addendums, or addenda, I should say. So that's all on track. That bid opening is going to be done electronically. They're all going to be submitted electronically to Asher over at VIA. Brent Rakowski from Otter Creek Engineering met with Parker, who was the low bidder for the demolition work. They met there, I guess that was last Friday, I think it was, to take a walk through and get that underway. We'll just need Kathleen to sign a contract shortly, but you guys have already approved that. The water line project out at Dow Pond Route 116 water line project. Again, you guys have approved the bid on that. We've sent the notice of award to the contractor. Jamie Simpson is working on getting the contract docs ready, and then when those are, we'll forward those to Kathleen all electronically. He hopes to start sometime in May, and I think as soon as this governor releases maybe a little more openness, that'll go. But he's going to have a small crew, so he can technically probably start. But I think we're looking at probably mid-May for that. Katy Road Culvert project, that's kind of going to start. It's planned to start the end of June. That's probably far enough out not to worry too much about that. So yeah, things are kind of moving. People are ready, getting antsy to go, as you all know.
And how about the water line work here in town?
Boy, that's a tough one because we really need to know when the bridge opening is going to, not bridge opening and restart the project, but the closure, the 10-week period, when that's going to be, so we can tell the contractor when they might start. We thought we would have them start mid-August before all of this happened, and then do a short 2-week shutdown around color season, events at Middlebury College, to give the inns a break for night construction. That's all gone away. We might be looking at starting after Columbus Day until the asphalt plant closes before Thanksgiving. Maybe a 4-week schedule, if that works. But if this keeps being delayed, I think it might just get punted to next year. And we'll see what the state does with their projects. The paving project, don't know how that's going to work. So things are stacked up a little bit in that front.
Yeah. Are there any things that are holding up on you getting the infrastructure committee together and working through some of the staff work?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Are there any other things that kind of just got shelved because the inability to coordinate stuff? I know that like Creek Road is one of the ones.
Well, I mean, Bill probably has more work as information on Creek Road. Shardville, I did not mention that. The contractor, who is Pike, is anxious to get going on Shardvilla. So again, I think he's looking for the governor to say, okay, let's open a little more, and he's ready to go because he has stopped in and talked to Patty, through the glass about what we thought our schedule would be. So there's another one that's waiting.
Okay.
I have not put out sidewalk work just because I'm not there to make that go forward.
Okay, those are the type of questions I was wondering.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
But overall, Dan, we're in fairly decent shape, having bid out most of the projects before things fell apart.
Yeah, it's kind of getting to the point where like that one more quarter turn, people are ready to go. Parker can go once we get a contract to them. There's not going to be that many people there. They can start. Dow Pond, Route 16 water main, that can start. Small crews. So yeah, those can get going pretty quick here.
Super.
Yep.
Those are the type of things that may start getting things moving. Huh? It seems like the construction has let us out of the last one.
Right. Yep. Should be good.
Okay.
Thanks for the update, Dan.
Oh, you're welcome.
Next is approval of check warrants, and I think you had it, Farhan?
Yes. Under the authority granted by the Selectboard on April 28, 2020, I have reviewed and approved on behalf of the board total expenditures in the amount of $248,792 $674.65, consisting of $155,025.11 for accounts payable and $96,649.54 for payroll for the period April 15 to April 28, 2020, and move the board's approval of payment of these expenses.
Do we need a second? Or because we already approved him, we don't?
I'm thinking it would be nice to have a second, but first.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay, so just to support him so it goes into the minutes, let's go ahead and vote these so that they're not hanging out there alone. Okay. Kathleen, Town Manager's Report.
I don't have a lot to report, but just to note on your current correspondence summary, the first draft of the correspondence summary had noted that residents Chip Mayer, Jack Mayer, Dean Shappy, and Victoria DeWind expressed concern regarding references in the Addison on plans to hold the Middlebury Filmmakers Festival. The original copy of the current correspondence said the Festival on the Green. And as we know, the Festival on the Green is not going to be held this year, but their concerns were more towards the Filmmakers Festival. And a response, and just for people that may be watching, we had a response from Lloyd Comazar, the event promoter, stating that while he remains cautiously optimistic that the festival can go on, no final decision has yet been made. That's all I have.
7:39, we're already to board member concerns. Kathleen, are we piling up on stuff that we need to work on when we get back to more?
So I'm thinking that for the next meeting, we're going to start to have to shift to doing some business, start tackling some of the things that the board identified at its retreat to work on. And I'll stay tuned for that. I'll give you a draft timeline on some of those things.
Okay. So just go across and wait till you guys are stacked up in my video here. Victor.
Nothing.
Nick.
Well, actually, some of them have already been answered. My thoughts are, how are we prepared? What do we need to do to prepare to come out of this thing when the time is ready to come out? I mean, so much of what I'm dealing with right now in work professionally is just getting ready for that when we can start moving again. Some of the stuff's already been answered. One I had was the economic study, and I appreciate the effort everybody's doing. And as soon as we can start seeing even fragments of that, would be worth it. Second was, if there's been any updated meetings on Creek Roads to get us some numbers so we can start to know what that's going to look like, especially since change of the economics. The third one is a master plan. Do we have an update on that? Is that still moving forward as scheduled? Seems like, obviously the people doing the master plan, they're probably not traveling either, so maybe a chance to actually accelerate a little bit and have that so that whenever the bridge project is done, that could be something conceivably that we could be ready to adopt.
Jen is working with the Planning Commission on reviewing a draft of that.
Excellent.
Coming to the board.
Questioning right now.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's all for tonight.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Farhad?
I'm all set, thanks.
Okay, Heather?
I don't really have anything. I just would comment on Creek Road to Nick's point. So Pete DeGraff had wanted to get a meeting with Kathleen and Dan and myself to start maybe the discussions with landowners, but that happened like right at the beginning of this COVID-19, and I suggested at the time that we just put that on hold, that it wasn't priority. Kathleen certainly had her hands full, and didn't need anything else on her plate. And so we haven't had a conversation yet as far as restarting those conversations. And I would defer to Kathleen and what her schedule looks like before I reach out to Peter and try to reschedule something there.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think we should start to move forward on.
Okay. Otherwise, I'm good.
Okay. Dan?
I have nothing.
Okay. And I think that's all. Lindsay didn't join us later, did she? Didn't see her. So, okay, we do have need for an executive session. And Heather, are you able to?
Sure. Sure. Let me just scroll to the right place. In accordance with Vermont's open meeting law requirements, I move that the board find that premature general knowledge of the consideration of legal matters would clearly place the select board at a substantial disadvantage because the select board risks disclosing its litigation strategy if it discusses the legal matters in public.
Second.
All in favor?
I further move that the board enter into executive session to discuss legal matters under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1 of the Vermont statutes.
Once again, second.
All in favor? Okay, so we're entering executive session at 7:43.